Welcome, friends. Great to see each and every one of you on the channel, those who've been with us for a while and those dropping in for the first time. Before we get into it, a genuine request, and I ask you to take it seriously. Hit the bell and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. YouTube is actively fighting this kind of content, shadow banning channels like ours, and effectively hiding our videos from the broader audience. The platform's algorithm deliberately suppresses the reach of military analytical material, and the majority of our subscribers simply don't see new videos in their feed. Only your engagement, subscriptions, the bell, likes, keeps us afloat and gets this information to the people who need it. It takes 5 seconds, but for this channel it is genuinely critical. All right, to business. On the world stage, the drawn-out circus around the Strait of Hormuz continues. Closed, open, closed again, open again. The pendulum swings with impressive regularity, and there's no end in sight, at least for now. Yesterday, Trump unleashed a genuine barrage, 13 or 14 posts in a row. In each one, he'd beaten someone, made peace with someone, resolved something. Well, that's his signature style. We'll break down the Hormuz situation in detail at the end of the episode. There really is plenty to discuss there. On the Ukrainian front, the results over the past 24 hours are more than solid. The numbers are good, the news is broadly positive, so without further preamble, straight into the frontline breakdown. Kharkiv direction, Vovchansk sector. We're starting, and you've probably already guessed, once again with the zone of responsibility of Group North. April is shaping up to be an exceptionally productive month for this grouping. In terms of the pace of territorial gains, it is, without exaggeration, the most effective of all currently active groupings. Yesterday, we covered its offensive in the Sumy region. Today, fresh and quite interesting news from Kharkiv. Literally 2 days ago on air, I said, after the taking of Vovchansky Khutori, the advance would become significantly easier. A reminder of the context, the fighting for that settlement was genuinely brutal, a real meat grinder. It lasted 3.5 months, from December 30th through April 15th. The Ukrainian army held on stubbornly, every meter hard won. But when Khutori was finally taken, I put forward the assessment. From here, there are no more heavily fortified and sizable settlements. The enemy won't be able to organize a full-scale defense all the way to Volokhovka. And even there, it should be somewhat easier than in Vovchansk or Vovchansky Khutori. The prediction came true, and faster than I expected. Just 2 days passed, and Russian fighters took the neighboring village of Zibino. The advance in depth came to more than 2 kilometers, 2,200 meters to be precise. Alongside the occupation of Zibino itself, the forest to the north of the settlement was cleared, closing off a potential flank and ruling out any unpleasant surprises. I'll be honest, I reckoned it would take about a week to take Zibino. The guys did it in 2 days. That says a great deal about the state of the Ukrainian army's defenses on this sector and about the morale of the grouping's fighters. What's more, Russian forces have already entered the next village, Pokalyanoye. Fighting is ongoing there right now. I won't give precise timelines, I don't want to jinx it, but the nature of the incoming reports is such that by all indications, that settlement will pass under Russian control within a few days. What comes next along the route? The next targets in line are the villages of Karaichnoye and Volokhovka. And here the Ukrainian army may attempt to dig in seriously. The settlements are larger, the terrain fundamentally more complex. Look at the American topographic map. See it? The villages sit in low ground, while beyond the river there are serious commanding heights. Whoever controls those heights automatically covers several settlements with direct fire. Bochkovo, Chaikovka, Volokhovka, and Karaichnoye. In other words, without first taking those heights, pushing into the villages themselves makes no sense. You'll be taking fire from above on open ground. The operational logic here is straightforward. First, the heights across the river, then the settlements. I'm confident Group North will manage this task. It's simply a matter of time, most likely in May rather than April. Kupiansk sector, the perennial seesaw. Here the situation is, as always on this sector, ambiguous. The pendulum reliably swings both ways. There's good news and there's bad news. Nothing surprising, Kupiansk is a chronic tug of war. It's never been any other way here. Let's go through it in order. On the positive side, control over Kondrashivka has been restored. The Ukrainian army has been pushed out of the southern part of the village. This matters since it was precisely the southern section that gave the enemy a convenient springboard for pressure on adjacent positions. Simultaneously, an industrial facility between Holubivka and Radkivka was cleared. It might seem like a minor detail, but this clearance directly improves logistics toward Kupiansk itself, and logistics on this sector have always been a headache. On the negative side, the loss of control in Moskovka has been confirmed. I'll note straight away, this didn't happen yesterday or the day before, not even in March. These are February events. The data has simply only now been confirmed. Such is the information fog on this sector, traditionally thick. Now for Kupiansk proper. On the right bank, the picture is mixed. Positions on Yubileyная Street and in Alexeyevka in the northern part of the city have been lost. Control over the central city hospital and surrounding buildings has been ceded. And that, it should be understood, is a large and convenient strongpoint. At the same time, control in the city center has been restored. The administration building, the clothing market and the car market are once again under Russian control. Urban combat is always an exchange of positions, and that exchange continues. On the left bank, a considerably more encouraging picture. In the Kucherivka area, a significant success has been recorded. Full control has been established over the forest to the east of the village. Russian forces have entered Kucherivka from the north and consolidated firmly in the central part of the settlement. With the front in this configuration, the section of Kucherivka adjacent to the left bank part of Kupiansk will, in all likelihood, be fully cleared in the very near term. The map here speaks more eloquently than any words. Further south, cartographers have removed the shading for Kupiansk-Vuzlovyi. The story is straightforward. Forces had entered, footage of objective control existed, but Russian troops have not been there for a long time and, in essence, never had a stable presence. This has now been officially confirmed by incoming data, and the map has been brought into line with reality. And now, the most important point on this sector. According to available information, the Ukrainian army is currently systematically withdrawing forces from Kupiansk and its surroundings, reducing the grouping. One portion is being redeployed to the Vovchansk sector, where Russian forces are pushing most aggressively and where gaps in the defense urgently need plugging. Another portion is heading to the Dobrovilska direction. The logic of this decision is understandable. Patch the holes where the fire is burning hottest. But for Kupiansk, this means the following. If the Ukrainian army couldn't take the city in December, January and February, when it was operating with maximum forces and clear intent to turn the situation around, then now, having weakened its grouping, achieving any success here is simply not on the cards. The Russian side, on the contrary, gains a very real opportunity to finally resolve this long-suffering question, both regarding the city and the entire sector. Sloviansk direction, Group South. Here, no seesaw, only concrete, measurable results. Over the past 24 hours, Russian fighters advanced along a sector 6 kilometers wide, depth from 1 to 1.5 kilometers. At first glance, modest. But as always, the devil is in the details. The principal result was the taking of Rasipna Balka. What does this change? Now, among any meaningful defensive lines available to the Ukrainian army to the east of Rye-Oleksandrivka, practically only the western forest remains. And even that, look at the map, is frankly a small wood. A conditionally powerful line, nothing more. And working in forests is something Russian fighters know how to do. It's been demonstrated repeatedly across various sectors of the front. Rye-Oleksandrivka has its own specifics that cannot be ignored. First, the village itself sits on elevated ground, meaning a frontal assault without preliminary flank preparation will be costly. Second, to fully control Rye-Oleksandrivka and avoid constant counterattacks, it is necessary to first take all the surrounding forest massifs, the western wood, the grove near Lipivka, and, most critically, the large forest to the north of the settlement. Only after all those wooded areas are under control will the flanks be secured and the settlement itself can be tackled with confidence. When will this happen? No illusions, none of this will happen quickly. The Ukrainian army has dug into this defense in earnest. The fortified zone there is real. By my assessment, a month to a month and a half, perhaps two, for clearing the forests and the subsequent assault on Oleksandrivka. Possibly somewhat longer, but once that is done, the countdown for Mykolaiv begins. And from there it isn't far to Sloviansk. If things continue along the logic we're currently observing, a push into the city itself is quite realistic by autumn. I won't rush into categorical predictions, but the direction of travel is clear. Pokrovsk and Dobrovolska directions. On the Pokrovsk direction, activity continues to the north of Molodetskoye, Udakhne and Kotlino. According to incoming reports, Russian forces are taking full control of the slag heaps in this area, right here on the map, and expanding the zone of control significantly north of Udakhne. The information has not yet received final cartographic confirmation, but confirming data should arrive within the next couple of days, at which point I'll immediately update the map and give you a full breakdown. From Hryshyn, video material arrived today. We already spoke previously about strikes on Ukrainian army positions in Vasilivka and Novoalexandrivka, and about Russian forces systematically moving toward those settlements. And here, the first concrete confirmation: Russian troops have expanded their zone of control by 700 meters north of Hryshyn, and forward positions in that area came under attack from the Ukrainian side. Apparently a reaction to an advance the enemy finds unwelcome. Separately, there is incoming information about Russian forces reaching the E50 supply road west and southwest of Hryshyn. No confirmation yet. I'm not putting it on the map, but taken together, the picture being drawn is fairly clear. On the Dobrovolska direction, active fighting continues in the vicinity of Belitske and Novy Donbass, with battles underway for the settlements themselves. The Russian side continues to strike systematically at Ukrainian army positions in Shevchenko, Dobropilya, Stepi, Vilne and Kucherov Yar. FPV drones and artillery are working actively. The pressure here is not letting up. Regarding the northern part of Toretsk, video material has arrived that allows the zone of control to be clarified. The Ukrainian army is holding a number of positions in the northern part of the city. A reminder, there was earlier footage from Novopavlivka, but between Novopavlivka and Toretsk, there is currently a grey zone. Neither Russian nor Ukrainian forces are there in any positional sense. As soon as material arrives confirming Russian army movement, the map will be updated immediately. On the Zaporizhzhia direction, there are many questions building up in the comments, and I understand the impatience. But the situation is as follows. There is still no information. The contact is not responding. No objective control footage from this sector has arrived in 2 days. We wait. As soon as anything appears, we'll break it down immediately. Summary of the day. Over 20 square kilometers of territory passed under Russian control. The Ukrainian army, in turn, reclaimed around 5.5 square kilometers. The ratio speaks for itself, roughly 4-to-1 in favor of the Russian side. For a single 24-hour period, that is a substantial result. The Strait of Hormuz. Resolution or another pause. Now to the Middle Eastern storyline that is currently exerting active pressure on global energy markets. The IRGC put forward 5 conditions for passage through the strait. First, civilian vessels pass exclusively along a route agreed with the Iranian side, no freelancing. Second, warships are barred from entry, full stop, no exceptions. Third, any transit requires direct authorization from IRGC naval forces. Fourth, all transit activity is tied to the fulfillment of the Lebanese ceasefire conditions, meaning Iran is using the strait as a tool of political leverage across multiple fronts simultaneously. Fifth, vessels and their cargoes must have no connections whatsoever to the United States or Israel. By current estimates, around 20,000 mariners, approximately 2,000 vessels and 132 million barrels of oil are presently stranded in the Persian Gulf. Less than a week remains before the ceasefire deadline expires. We're counting in days. Iran ultimately announced the opening of the strait to commercial shipping, presenting it as a gesture of goodwill in the context of the Lebanese ceasefire. A nicely packaged diplomatic gesture. However, Trump immediately responded. The naval blockade on vessels heading to or from Iranian ports remains fully in force, pending the finalization of a deal with Tehran. Most provisions, according to the American president, are already agreed. The process should proceed quickly. The IRGC, in turn, made clear, if the United States does not lift the naval blockade on Iran, the strait will be closed again. The circle has been closed. What does this mean in practice? The situation remains fundamentally far from resolved. The American-Iranian negotiations encompass a far broader and more painful range of issues than Hormuz alone. The nuclear program, regional influence, the sanctions regime. The success of these negotiations is guaranteed by no one and nothing. A renewed blockade remains an entirely real scenario and could resume at any moment. Under these conditions, major energy consumers, primarily Asian importers, have almost certainly rushed to exploit the pause, however potentially brief, to urgently replenish their reserves. Whether this demand spike will ultimately lead to a noticeable fall in oil prices is an open question. The market will be watching how durable the opening of the strait actually proves to be. As for whether Trump and his inner circle have once again made excellent money on this news spike, there is, frankly, little reason for doubt. The figures run to billions, and the mechanism is well oiled. That's all for today, friends. As always, thank you for being with us, for following the situation alongside us. Special thanks to those who've already hit the bell and left a like. It genuinely helps the channel survive and grow. See you in the next episode. Take care of yourselves and your loved ones.